Also want to welcome our new member of the commission here, Betsy Williams, here with us today. Glad to have you. Had a new one last month, and glad to have her back with us. So, Sarah, you're in charge on that end over there. All right. If you're not satisfied with the decisions made by Traffic and Parking Commission, you may appeal the decision by filing a writ of cert with the Davidson County Chancery Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and all the procedural requirements have been met. Do I have a motion on the approval of today's agenda?
Move to approve.
Have a first?
Second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approval of the minutes from May the 9th, 2016. Have a first?
Second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approval on the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a change to the consent agenda. If we could remove item number 5, I have a conflict of interest on that item. And then item number 6.
Are you just saying you want to not vote on those two, or what?
Right, if we could remove those and talk about those individually.
We need a motion to remove them from consent, and I guess a second.
I'd like to
vote to remove those two items from consent, and then we will take those out of order.
Okay. All right, we have a motion to remove items 5 and 6 on the consent agenda. Then we'll discuss those after we go through the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a first?
Second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time. No individual public hearing will be held, nor will the commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or the commission requests that the items be removed from the consent agenda. Rules on public hearing. Keep comments to 3 minutes or less. Each person representing will be expected to offer new information that has not been made previously. Once the public hearing has been closed, no additional comments will be heard unless the public hearing is officially reopened. I know some of the commissioners may not have gotten your agenda as early as we usually get, but they were late getting them out, and the staff wants to apologize for that. Let's take Councilman Pride Moore's bill, if you would. Go to the second page on new business. Councilman Pride Moore, can you make it up here, buddy?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. This is on new business, item number 1, ordinance number BL 2016-223, an ordinance to amend titles 12 and 16 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws of Nashville and Davidson County to establish a speed limit at major construction and demolition sites and to provide appropriate signalage. Support is sponsored by Councilman Bill Pridemore. Councilman Pridemore.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Commissioners. Appreciate you being here to allow me to be here today for this presentation. And I'd like to first apologize for my attire, but what I'm wearing is not very conducive to a suit, so I just got to go with what I can dress with.
That's fine. You're good.
Thank you, sir. What I want to this ordinance 223 is I've several times in the past 2 or 3 years I've been approached by mostly police officers, off-duty police officers who have been they're working construction sites, building demolitions, and they're having more and more issues involving traffic failing to yield or just flying by them without any type of speed restrictions applied to them. So they've asked that I do a little research, in which I've done, and hence here we have this bill. And according to Tennessee Code 55-8-153C, it does provide that the legislative bodies of Tennessee municipalities do possess the power to lower speed limits in areas that are controlled by those municipalities. So with that, that's the reason why I brought this legislation forward. And basically what it is, it's just adding construction demolition site restrictions, and it sets out the penalty and also replaces Section 1628-235. It replaces D and E by inserting the following, which is on the legislation presented to you. So I'd like to present that and move that forward if possible.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions for Councilman Pridemore?
Teresa, do you want to take a minute and explain for the new commissioner, or maybe all of us, how this is a recommendation to council versus an action item?
So the Charter of the Metropolitan Government provides that ordinances or resolutions that would come before Metro Council that impact traffic are what's called a mandatory referral to the Traffic and Parking Commission. So when they come before you, you have an opportunity to make a recommendation to the council, and there's a 30-day period in which is provided for that to occur. If it doesn't occur, it can proceed as though you all had recommended it. It is if it's referred to the commission, but the commission doesn't hear it, that would be what would happen. So. In this case, obviously, it has been properly referred to you, and you have an opportunity to either approve or disapprove. If you disapprove or don't recommend it, then it has to be passed by council by a supermajority.
So I just wanted you to realize that even though we say yes or no to any ordinance that's ever presented before us, it's really up to council at some point to vote. We're just making a recommendation on whether we like it or not. And that just changes the number of votes that bill would need. So with that said, the councilman has been courteous enough to kind of give us an advance copy of this, and we've worked through some issues. I think safety first in all construction zones. I would like to work on some language about it being MUTCD compliant, which is the traffic signage book that makes it reflective and that kind of thing. Whereas this says plywood, but that's details. As far as this body goes, Public Works is also recommending approval. Anytime we can lower the speeds in construction zones, whether it's through an ordinance or by signage or whatever the means, we're all in favor of it.
Chairman, I had a question. Can we go back to that first page? This is actually the first time we're seeing it written out. I didn't see it in the agenda, and so I was curious if it quantifies the size of construction, or if someone was, simply building a garage apartment, if that what's the level that would trigger this ordinance of construction?
I'll be more happy to answer that. According to let me find it here, the definition of a demolition site. Now, this is a demolition site defined by Section 1628-235A. Considering major projects means a project meeting one of the following criteria. 1, new construction or demolition of a building more than 3 stories in height. New construction or demolition of a building with an average roof height of more than 40 feet above grade, excluding roof access structures. And new construction or demolition of a building covering 10,000 square feet or more, regardless of height. And any altercation to a building facade or any demolition activity that impacts the exterior of the building and is performed at a level above 3rd story. That is the definition of major projects. There are some, after seeing this, I do have some question of how I would get this as far as, smaller construction might need an amendment somewhere down the road for smaller construction projects. But at this point, that's the definition of the posting of information sign for the major project. Now, that's just posting for the information signs, but that is the definition of a major project.
Okay, great. And so if there were some tweaks, like for instance, Chip, you mentioned for the signage, that could still occur even after it, gets approval or is from this
I was
as
just
it
going
moves
to pass
forwards?
you. I was just going to pass you my comments before you leave, and
Yeah,
basically it's about reflectivity at night and that kind of thing. But yeah, that kind of language. Corby, can you flip to that second page? Right there in E where it says 3/4 inch plywood and all these details about the size and lettering height and all, we might work on that to just say it's got to be MUTCD compliant, and all those things are covered. It's got to be
Okay.
reflective, it's got to have the right lettering height, it's got to be X size, it's got to be posted a number of feet in advance of the construction zone. So if we make it federally mandated by the manual we use, it takes care of itself. And it takes care of this body. That's the book we follow as a commission, the MUTCD. So I can give you my notes, Councilman, or Benny.
Well, and staff is recommending approval, but would it help to have a deferral so that we could work some of these things out? What's staff's recommendation?
What's the status in council for your?
it was deferred. I deferred its second reading or first reading for it to come before this commission. So it's supposed to go to second reading I think on the 21st, deferred to June 21st, second reading.
So I don't want to take action for this commission. I'm just a recommending person. But if you wanted to make a motion that says we recommend approval based on agreement to language by Public Works Engineering or Traffic Engineering, that would be fine with me. It leaves a little gray for you, but or I can just say scratch out sentence number 2 and put MUTCD in there if you want to take care of it today. But I got my notes right here in front of me if you want to go through them. Either way, I think we start where it says shall. You take out shall, and you put in follow MUTCD requirements for color, size, reflectivity, etc. And you scratch everything after that.
Okay. Well, with staff's recommendation, I'd like to make a motion for approval with the change that it says past shall, the MUTCD, as you mentioned.
Councilman, I do not want to change your bill.
No, that is perfectly fine.
Okay.
And Chip, I have one more question too. Does the MUTCD also cover where the signs are placed?
Yes.
So that they're not in the right of way of a sidewalk or anything like that?
Good question. It does. Well, the other ordinances that we have say you shouldn't block a sidewalk with your signage, but it does talk about 200 feet in advance of the construction zone or whatever that distance is. It tells you how and where to put them. And so if something does come up and we go to court, we say this is why it was where it is and what color it was, and that's, yes.
So there
Now,
are.
the MUTCD does not say you can't block a sidewalk, but local ordinance and policy does.
Okay, because that was just my one concern. If we had one at every construction zone, making sure that it wasn't in a place that was inconvenient.
Typically, we cover that through the construction permit, whether it's a lane closure or whatever. Now we're starting to put on our permits, don't block the sidewalk. Make sure you're keeping all the paths of travel open.
Great.
Well, I had a motion on,
Yeah, and I'll second the motion.
Have a first, a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners.
All right. Consent agenda. Proposal number 2016M003AB001, a request to abandon and quitclaim any interest that Metro has in a portion of Korean Veteran Boulevard right-of-way at 7th Avenue within the area that the state of Tennessee has approved as surplus property, designated as Track 15 on the federal project number STP MHPP number 53333 and state project number, is that 191? Is that what it's supposed to be, Chip? Yes. 191? Okay. 12 /062 requested by Metro Public Works applicant. Proposal number 2016M014AB001, a request to abandon a portion of a right-of-way and easement on Wade Avenue between 12th Avenue South and alley number 649 and alley number 649 between Wedgewood Avenue to alley number 681, requested by Metro Public Property applicant and owner. Number 3, proposal number 2016M0015AB001, a request to abandon alley number 588 right-of-way and an easement from 29th Avenue North to I-40 right-of-way between 902 and 906 29th Avenue North, requested by John H. Odie Jr., applicant and owner. Item number 4, proposal number 2016M0016AB001, a request to abandon a portion of right-of-way and easement on alley number 516 from Garfield Street to the northeast corner of map number 081080347000 between Rosa L. Parks Boulevard and Nissan Street, requested by Civil Site Design Group, applicant, various owners. All right, down to item number 7. Proposal number 2016M0019AB001, a request to abandon a portion of unimproved alley number 328 right-of-way from Cleveland Street northerly to the terminus between Stockwell Street and Meridian Street and North 3rd Street, easements and utilities to be maintained, requested by Barge, Cowden and Associates, applicant, various owners. Do I have a motion on these that we have talked about? Then we'll go back to 5 and 6 and discuss those individually.
Move to approve.
Have a first?
Second.
Second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. All right. Item number 5, Mary wants to discuss 5 and 6. Proposal number 2016M0017AB001, a request to abandon a portion of Rosemont Avenue right-of-way and easement from the northwest corner of map number 1171601010 southward approximately 125 feet to its dead end easement and utilities to be maintained. Requested by Barge, Wagner, Sumner, Cannon Incorporated, applicant, Lipscomb University owner. Mary?
Well, actually, I need to recuse myself from this item. My employer is Barge, Wagner, Sumter, and Cannon. So if you could vote on this individually.
Okay.
I'll motion to approve this item.
Have a first?
Second.
Second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. All right. Item number 6. Proposal number 2016M0018AB001, a request to abandon a portion of unimproved alley number 330 right-of-way from Cleveland Street northerly to an alley 33 between Meridian Street and 3rd Street, easements and utilities to be maintained, requested by Barge, Cannon, Barge, Coffin and Associates, applicant, what is it, Tina Enterprises LLC owner. All right, Mary, you want to?
Yes, I had a question about this. I'm not sure if we can bring up the map on it, but there's an alley, and it's along Ray Hope Drive, and beside the church, and it appears that they would no longer have access into that parking area there. And again, maybe we can take a look at that, but maybe staff could
Well,
weigh in.
anyone here to talk about that particular item? Okay. Corby, if you've got, it's more of the agenda packet Do you have anything in the agenda packet with the map?
Or if you zoom in on that
No.
Ray of Hope Community Church,
Everybody does? Oh, well, I'll have to pass it around. And actually, she makes a good point that if you look in, I'll pass this around. If you look on the very bottom of this diagram I'm going to pass around, there's some angled parking, 45-degree parking. And this alley closure, if we don't know how that's going to operate, could landlock those parking spots. So look at the bottom of the picture where those angled parking spots are versus the closure.
and too, if you're able to see that Ray of Hope Community Church, see that parking out front right on Cleveland? If you go, you're close to it, it's, so the church is about a 3-story, I believe. Go up just a little bit or down, I guess. Yeah, there we go. So you can see the alley running, looks like on the east side of that church. And there's angled parking, so when you come down the alley to go into those parking spaces, I mean, I could see how you could block off the access to Cleveland, but you would still need that alley along the east side of the church.
See right above where it says Cleveland, the C in Cleveland and Google? See Google right in the middle? That parking lot just to the north is where we're talking about. That driveway right below that arrow right there, that driveway on the plan that we have in our hand that's coming around is closing. And so if the alley closes and that driveway closes, we're concerned about accessing that parking lot. I'm not saying that the bill won't pass at some point, but I think you're wanting to get a deferral, Commissioner?
I think, yes, at a minimum, a deferral, since no one's here to talk about it.
Correct.
I'd like to make a motion to defer
Second.
and
All right.
proposal number 2016M-0018AB-001.
Yeah. All right, we have a motion to defer and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand.
For 1 month.
For 1 month. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, resolution item number 8, resolution 0616, remove valet stand at 1907 Eastland Avenue. B, authorize stop sign on Lakehurst Drive at McEwing Avenue. C, authorize no trucks over 5,000 pounds on Panorama Drive. D, authorize no trucks over 5,000 pounds on Hospital Lane. All in favor, raise your right hand.
I'd like to make a motion for approval.
Have a first, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. New business. Chip, I believe ordinance number BL 2016-239, you've requested this to be deferred, is that right?
Well, I believe it.
Yeah. Yeah, the council contacted me this morning and said that she would like to defer it while she's working through some other things with some other council members at this time. And she said when she gets her ducks more or less kind of in a row a little bit better, she's going to bring it back and discuss it a little further with us. She really said she just wanted to run it, the idea through traffic parking, not really had a definitive idea of what it was going to be, but just wanted to start the conversation. So.
Okay, so she wants an indefinite deferral, Benny?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. On that ordinance number 2016-239, we have a motion, Mary?
Yes, for an indefinite deferral.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Old business, modify yield sign to stop sign on Valley Brook Road at Bear Road.
Yeah, last month a question came up of basically why change the sign, and so I had to go back and do a little checking, and it got a little more complicated than I was bargaining for. What happened, we had a request to change the yield sign to a stop sign at one of these triangle islands out in the Green Hills area. And because people were quote-unquote rolling through it, which is pretty common for a yield, that's the point, but if they're not yielding. So we looked in the schedule at the history of the sign, and it's in the books as a stop sign, which now who knows how long it's been out there as a yield and why this happened. None of us are to blame on that. So changing its yield to a stop sign is not that big a deal because you're supposed to stop anyway if the yield isn't present, if you can't go. So anytime somebody says that people are rolling through this intersection and it's creating a problem, and it's already in the books as a stop sign, we were just going to change it to a stop sign. But you're familiar with the area, Ms. Woods, so I'm okay leaving it as a yield. There's not a crash history. It's probably more of an enforcement roll through the sign thing. We either got to change the book to a yield or change the sign to a stop, and I'm okay with either one. The other signs in the island are stops, so it would be more consistent to just change the signage to a stop sign. But that would be the only reason, really. It's up to you and your neighbors, because I don't want to put it on you. I'm recommending a stop sign, but we either need to change what's in the records as far as the schedule or leave it the way it is and just change the book.
Where's the yield sign on this?
Right there.
Oh, there it is, okay.
And it is a stop sign in every other direction if you're
Yeah.
coming into the triangle?
Yes, ma'am. A yield, it depends on the signs you look at for yield signs. Yield signs are basically stop signs. If somebody's coming, you got to stop. But it keeps that traffic moving just a little better if you don't have to come to a complete stop. It helps these guys with enforcement because, you always have violations of rolling through stop signs. But when Mary John Hicks is the requesting party, she is a neighbor out there of yours, and yeah, so she's the one that said people were not necessarily stopping or yielding when they should, so can we change it? And I'm okay with doing that.
And you said staff recommends
Yes.
changing it?
What about it, say relief?
I'm not going to be curious, about why it was needed,
A lot of people are of the opinion stop signs, that when you have roadways like this, slow the traffic down because they have to come to a complete stop. Then they have to obviously look both ways before they enter the intersection and then begin accelerating. Whereas a yield sign, if there's nothing coming, has a tendency to maintain that speed or people will increase their speeds. That's why a lot of residents prefer stop.
So I'll put it back on me. I'm recommending a stop sign.
Okay.
And I guess I was leaning whatever with Ms. Hicks. Ms. Hicks is also a very adamant, involved individual with traffic calming and things like that or whatever. So I'm not saying she's an engineer, but she's very attuned to what's going on in her neighborhood. I've been dealing with her and working with her for a very long time. And she's not one that's prone to looking to just do something. If she's brought it up, she's thought about it a long time. So she's just giving a little credibility to her request.
All right. Any more discussion? Have a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the yield to stop sign.
Have a first,
I'll second.
second.
Well, Teresa, it's already in the schedule as a stop.
If it's in the schedule, does that mean that it previously came before this commission and was approved?
Yeah, so is it a non-action item? And it's just an FYI for the commission at this point?
Theoretically, I don't think it hurts for them to take any action
Okay.
in terms of clarification. They're kind of reiterating their prior action, perhaps.
Okay, good.
So the motion is to implement the actual change from a yield to a stop.
Okay. All right, we have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, other business. Magnolia bike lanes.
I don't know if you've heard about this in the press or anywhere on TV or in the paper, but we're going through some changes on Magnolia Boulevard where we're proposing to move the bike lane, which is on the right side of the road, to the left side of the road. And, that may not sound like a big deal, but it is to us, and especially in the engineering world. So I've got some consultants here that I work with, and they're going to explain what that means. It's non-action item. There's not a vote. This is, as commissioners in the traffic business, you might want to know about this. This is coming. This is the way the bike world is going. And so as a representative as our traffic community, this is more of a information for you, if nothing else.
So we're going to get pictures.
We're going to get some pictures and slides and a speech.
Trifecta.
Hi, my name is Sagar Anta. I'm with RPM Transportation, and we're helping Public Works with this project. This is, next slide. So this is, right now, there are bike lanes on Magnolia Boulevard and 17th and 16th Avenue couplet on the right side. The project area goes from 21st Avenue near Hillsborough Village and all the way to the roundabout at Music City Circle. The design process, right now we looked at whether Metro can justify the change, and the answer is yes. Does the design follow the mayor's complete street executive order? We looked at that, and that it does. We are looking into national guidelines to follow. We are looking at the FHWA guideline mainly to follow on that. So we are in the design process right now. And it will follow the guideline. And then right now we're going through the documentation process for applying some of the design features. I'll talk a little bit more detail. Existing alignment right now, we have 2 through lanes on 17th and 16th, a bike lane on the right-hand side, 5 foot, and an 8-foot parking, 8-foot parking on the right-hand side. We looked at the operation and safety. There are 8 crashes in the last 5 years. That is a little bit high, but it's also for a facility like this is not abnormal to have that. The concern with the latest design is this was okay in 2000 when the bike lane was put in, because that was the normal. But right now, the national design goes into providing buffer. So this lacks the buffer between the travel lane and the bikes and the parking side of the parked vehicles. So there's the dooring issues and the safety concern. So we're trying to address that. And the other thing in the operation of this bike lane right now is that the bike lanes are usually blocked by the deliveries of the FedEx buses that block both the travel lane and the bike to deliver, and then the visibility of the bicyclist from the driveways as the driveways exit. So those are the deficiencies that we are trying to address in this project. We looked at a couple of design options. The first option being putting the bike lane on the other side of the parked vehicle, so it will be between the parked vehicles and the curbside. The pros is it does provide better protection for the bicyclist, but the problem with that was that it decreases the visibility of the bicyclist from the cars, and then it also reduces the on-street parking, and that was one of the major concerns, because if you put it on the other side, you have to restrict parking on either side of the driveways for about 20 feet, so that reduces the number of parking, and then it reduces the maneuverability of the bicyclists if they want to make a left turn. They have the cars on the left side, no parked vehicles, so that's going to be a little bit difficult. The second option we looked at, and this is the one that Metro and we're proposing, is providing the bicycles on the left-hand side with a protection of 2-foot buffer. The pros is there's no reduction in parking because the parking side is on the right-hand side, and we're not touching that to what this is today. It separates the bicycles from all the parking maneuvers that's going on the right-hand side, and includes the buffer and the bollards to protect. The disbenefited cons are it is a new design, so it lacks familiarity with the driving public as well as the bicyclists. So there probably needs to be some education component comes in before this is implemented. And then the right side travel lane, so right now the travel lane, on the right side travel lane has a parking lane as sort of like a buffer with the parked vehicles, but this one shifts the travel lane closer to the parking. So that is hopefully that'll reduce speed, and that's sort of normal operation in downtown, but it is safety for both the parked vehicles and the traveling lane. It's sort of a little bit less, I guess, buffer than what it was before. So left side bike lane, the typical application is on a one-way street or a median divided street, which we have in this corridor, so that is good. High parking turnover, which is also the case in this one because of all the offices and businesses along the corridor. High right-turning vehicles. Right now, we do have a lot of vehicles turning right to go to Vanderbilt, like on 17th and Edge Hill. So that's why we're moving to the left-hand side. But there is also obvious concern with vehicles turning left, and you have bicycle on the left-hand side. So we are taking a deeper look into that and providing some signage and some pavement markings to let people know of those. There is also like high left turn bicyclists. Basically, this is bicycles coming from Belmont, and they want to come on 16 and make a left on to go to Vanderbilt. So that it does help with those movements. So having this bicycle on the left-hand side, and those are all sort of like the context-sensitive design that we are trying to address with this design. Next slide. So the recommendation, we are following the FHWA separated bike lane planning and design guide, which was published last year in May. We're following that as much as we can. The bike lanes are going to be minimum of 5-foot lane, but that does include the 2-foot gutter and 3 foot of pavement marking, and then a 2 foot of buffer. And the buffer, we have putting bollards every 20 feet at this point. We might go with the shorter bollards than what we have in Division Street, just for aesthetics reason. This is a rendering of what the bike box, what the design looks like at the intersection. So we will have a green paint to allocate the bike box. We will have the bike box in front of the stop bar, flexible bollards for the protections, a warning sign for the turning vehicles on the mast arm. There is going to be like a 2-foot queue storage on the left-hand side if bicycle wants to make a right-hand side and there's a lot of cars coming, so they have a space for them to wait before they make the right turn. And then for certain, I think on 16th and 17th, we are including bike loops so that if there are no cars, then if there are only bikes, then the traffic light will still come on for those bikes to go.
I have a question.
Sure.
What is to stop the rendering here of the bicyclist here?
Yes.
If there's a stop, is the bicyclist going to make a right in front of moving traffic?
No, not unless if there's a gap in traffic, they can. If there's no cars coming, they can make a right at the intersection. But if there are a lot of cars coming, then they wait till the light turns red, and then they can go into the bike box in front and make a right.
So if there's a right turn on red there, or I'm trying to get in my mind how the cars are going to not hit the cyclist.
Sure. So if there are cars there on red, then the bicycle should be able to go in front of them to make the right turn. So the cars will not be able to make a right turn.
So there's no right on red there? Is that what you're saying for cars?
There will be allowed, if there are no bikes, they can make a right turn on red.
Okay.
If there are bikes, then there will not be. Because they'll be
Okay.
permanent.
And I see the sign in the rendering, it says stop here on red.
Yes.
So that's to help
Right.
those drivers.
So
Right.
who has the right of way, the bicyclist or the car?
The bicyclist,
Over the car turning right.
yes.
At the stop, at one of the stops.
So we'll stop on red. If there's a car coming up and a bicyclist at the same time, the car is supposed to yield.
Yes.
How are people going to learn that? That's not the way traffic flows in Nashville right now.
We already have one of these on Church Street, which I use fairly regularly, and it actually works a lot like a crosswalk. So similarly, if there's a person walking across the street in a crosswalk, the cars have to yield. However, if there's no one in the crosswalk, a car wants to turn right, you kind of creep up into the crosswalk and then turn right. So it's actually fairly similar to how you would drive with a crosswalk or with the bike box on Church Street.
So do we have laws? I mean, driving laws where we're supposed to yield to bicyclists.
A stoplight or a stop, let's take a stoplight, for example. If it's a red light, stop. You have to stop. If you're going to make a right turn at that light, you can't make a right turn unless you can do so safely. If you run over a pedestrian, that's not safely. If you run over a bicyclist, that's not safely. So that's where the fault would be.
Okay.
Anytime the bicyclist or the pedestrian is legally within that crosswalk, then the driver has the responsibility to yield. And on the reverse side of that, whenever that light would be green, the cyclist would have the responsibility to yield before they could cross. So it's just, it's the way it's always been at the red lights for vehicles. But now that we're integrating a lot of cyclists onto the roadway a lot more, educational programs are, there's a lot of different aspects that are in motion right now to increase those educational aspects. And I know Ms. Kern's part of that, so.
That's terrific. I'm glad to hear about the educational programs. That's super. Thank you.
The other design features that we are incorporating in the design is what you call the early exit. And this is like if you're an experienced biker and there's no cars coming, then you can take an exit merge onto the travel lane and make a right. That's one of the new design. And then other one is the skip, providing green lines on the skip, between the skip. Couple of items that we are going through right now that we have to go through the federal process to get an approval of is the bike box and the green paint. The green paint is already interim approval, so that's just a letter that we need to send to the federal DOT and get an approval to get it. However, the bike box is a little bit more of process where we have to, because it's right now in an experimental approval only, so we would have to provide a letter saying where we're going to implement it and how we're going to monitor it. So there is a monitoring aspect of this application, and we're helping Public Works with that process right now. The current locations of where these are implemented, they are implemented all around the country, and the highlighted ones are just the ones that are sort of similar to Nashville that has already implemented it. The next step, we are finalizing design, working with Public Works on this one. The other task that we are taking on is documentation with the federal government. And like I said, the bike box is going to be a little more monitoring and data collection before and after application of the bike boxes. So that's going on. Then once that's all done, Public Works will get the final approval and then the design and construction, sorry. So that's, any questions?
Soccer, I did have one question. When you go back to that slide where it had the right turn, I'm sure you guys probably looked at this and there's probably a cost, that one works, cost factor to this. Is, having that curb extension so it's safer for the pedestrians to cross the street there, on the right, would that be a possible scenario? Is that something that you guys talked about? Having that curb extension or bulb out, as sometimes they're referred to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll certainly help with the crossing, but that's not what we do have no parking for 30 feet before the intersection. Mm-hmm. But right now we're not incorporating that in this current design.
Is that just scope or cost
yeah, it's
factors?
Scope, yeah,
okay.
mainly the scope and cost.
Yeah. Well, certainly I feel like that would, as help reduce that width that the pedestrian has to cross there. But I'm really excited about this. I think it's cutting edge. I'm so excited that Nashville has more bike boxes, and look forward to seeing this. So, great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. That young lady with you, does she want to speak?
No, I'm just here.
Okay. All right. All right. Ms. Williams, appreciate you being with us. Sergeant?
Oh, wait, I have
What?
one quick announcement. So I caught Peter Westerholm with the MPO. He came to this commission several months back and gave a presentation on parking strategies. And I know there was a couple of commissioners who weren't here at the time, but he gave another presentation last week with the Civic Design Center, and it's on the Civic Design Center's website. If you go to that and look for their MPO website, they filmed it, and so you can catch that again if you missed it last week. And with that,
I make a motion, we adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you. Appreciate everyone being here today.